Hilda is a Netflix original cartoon created by Luke Pearson, which is adapting a graphic novel collection of the same name. In September of 2018, it dropped its first season to a pretty much universally warm reception, and now in December of 2020, the series continues its run in the form of a highly anticipated second season. Now, I previously talked about season 1, and when I did, I actually focused my commentary on the problems that I saw with the season and where I thought it could improve, because I felt that everything positive to say about the show had already been said by other people. However, this time around, I'd like to take a more holistic approach to the show, both because it will allow me to address how the series handled what I felt were its weaker aspects, and because I just enjoyed this season, and it's fun to talk about what I liked about it. Also, of course, this video will contain spoilers for season 2, so if you haven't seen the show and you just want my overall impressions, I think that Hilda is a very good, dare I say, great show, and season 2 most certainly upholds that standard of quality and at times exceeds it. It's totally worth your time, and I would give this series a strong recommendation to anyone who seems interested. Hilda has already been praised plenty for its visuals, but I think that season 2 justifies the reiteration. This show is absolutely gorgeous. Now, I don't think you heard me right. This show is absolutely gorgeous. I can probably count on my hands how many times I've seen a cartoon so seamlessly integrate its characters into the world of a show. The thick textured outlines that are given to the characters match the same outlines present in their environments, which makes them feel perfectly at home no matter where they are, and yet they still pop on screen because the line art from the environments has these little breaks in them, and the characters are typically the only things on screen that have pitch black outlines. The effect work is superb across the board, with special attention I'd like to give to basically anything that glows. Color design is delightful whether the characters are in the city during broad daylight, in a snowy tundra, or inside the troll caves. The environments always have a unique and pleasing aesthetic, and the way that the characters' color palettes change depending on the environment again makes it feel like they truly exist in that space. Speaking of, the show's character designs are fantastically simple and clean, with Twig's design in particular being just genuinely perfect. And the animation, holy crap, the animation in this show and this season is simply incredible. Exploding with detail, personality, and polish. I don't think I would be exaggerating at all if I said that literally no part of at least season 2 looks bad. And I definitely wouldn't be exaggerating if I said that I paused at least once per episode to take a screen cap to use as a desktop wallpaper. Oh my god. The water, man. The water. Anyway, maintaining the same quality as season 1, the sound design this time around was also delightful. Of course, the voice acting is still extremely strong in just about every character that appears on screen, and I noticed a lot more scenes where the music took the center stage, which was really great since this show has a wonderful score. Though I took special appreciation out of the little details, like the sound of Hilda's feet skidding on the ground as she slides down a slope, or how the characters' voices are adjusted ever so slightly depending on if they are far away or behind an object that would obscure the sound, or in a location with varying acoustics. It was all very pleasant on the ears. Shifting gears, I'd like to talk a bit about my criticisms of season 1 and how season 2 handles these elements of the story. It's no secret that I felt like season 1 got a lot less compelling after we settled down into the city and transitioned into a more monster of the week formula, and while I do still stand by the points I made in my last video about this show, I think that season 2 has done a lot to make up for the missed opportunities I pointed out about having Hilda and Johanna stay in the forest. Specifically, season 2 introduces more running plot lines throughout the season, most notably with Eric Alberg and his quest to make Trollberg safer / become a hero in the eye of the public, by basically just harassing the trolls with bells so that they'll go away and the city can expand construction into the forest. Also aiding to this, many of the species and characters that appeared in previous episodes made a return in some form or another throughout season 2. This all lends to the series a feeling of enhanced continuity, a sense that the characters exist and understand that things happen outside of the immediate plot involving the main cast, which makes the world feel more alive and lived in, despite the fact that this is a show about ghosts, rock trolls, and miniature elves that are obsessed with paperwork. Moreover, I think that the way that each episode introduces and progresses whatever new species or world phenomena it wants to make an episode about helps create that sense of wonder and magic that I felt we lost in those first 3 episodes. I'll just be direct and say that the show doesn't explain why much of what happens in the season happens. Many of the decisions that the main characters make which get them into trouble feel pretty arbitrary, and many of the often magical in nature solutions to each episode's conflict kinda come out of nowhere. And while I did feel like this sometimes made it difficult to buy into the validity of the character's peril, I also realized that by keeping me somewhat in the dark regarding the rules and limitations of the many different species and magic systems that are brought up throughout this season, this show was able to recreate some of that wonder, and whether or not you feel like this trade-off was worth it will probably depend on your preference towards hard versus soft world building. So now that I've covered this season structurally, I'd like to explore its actual content, and to do so, we're going to be rounding back to that plotline about Eric Alberg. This is the one through line that connects virtually every episode in season 2, and I feel it strengthens the show's sense of causality. I enjoyed learning about his plan to construct bell towers around Trollberg and how this was affecting the old operator. I liked how his careless ringing of the underwater bell causes the Kraken to wake up far earlier than it should have. And I like how Gerda Gustav, Alberg's associate, gradually realizes how egotistical he is and ultimately decides to side with Hilda regarding how the trolls and other species should be treated. I think his inclusion and implementation was a very smart decision on the part of the creative team. However, it would be wrong of me not to address the main issues I have with his arc on its own. So, episode 1 and much of this show as a whole is bordering on explicit in portraying the notion that the people of Trollberg are taking too much from the wildlife surrounding them, that they don't respect the living things who they have literally taken land from and who they now demonize, considering dangerous or just generally a threat to humans' well-being and comfort of living. And Alberg is the pinnacle and thematic representation of that mindset, which is why I found it a little disconcerting how little this season really confronts and criticizes it. At no point does the show bat in favor of Eric and his goals, but it also doesn't really give him any meaningful consequences for his actions, despite the clear negative effect they have had on the magical species living in the forest. He kinda just gets relegated to comic relief, and the other characters just progressively take him less and less seriously. Obviously, I am not advocating sending him to turbo hell just for ringing a few bells, but at the very least, he should have had a "what have I done" moment. And unfortunately, establishing interesting and compelling plot lines that don't end up having the emotional payoff that they should is not an isolated incident. As much as I hate to criticize the show for this again, I was disappointed with the way it handled Hilda and Johanna's relationship. In season 1, I felt that Johanna should have punished Hilda for being so irresponsible in how she would just go on potentially dangerous adventures and leave her mom in the dark. And season 2 actually makes Hilda and Johanna's primary conflict about exactly that. However, I don't think it really stuck the landing. Okay, so the sequence wherein Johanna does exactly what I had been begging her to do since season 1 and grounds Hilda was fantastic. And although it was pretty arbitrary to the episode's plot, the scene wherein Hilda sees how much her mom is struggling with how to react to the situation that Hilda keeps putting her in was incredibly compelling as well, and it really seemed like the show was addressing exactly my problem with it. However, Hilda then just goes back to the same way she had been before, disobeying and lying to Johanna and putting herself in harm's way. This is an issue that I've noticed popping up occasionally in cartoons, and it is that characters will seemingly undergo some massive character change or learn an important lesson of some kind, and then fail to apply it to their behavior moving forward, which undercuts the significance of the lesson in the first place. Sure, learning from my past mistakes would probably be beneficial to me, but look, I can get by just fine without making any meaningful changes to myself, so who cares? This is why it's not just delivering the lesson to the audience that's important, it's the follow-through that matters. After learning what they need to do to improve, does the character in question at least attempt to become a better person? And in Hilda's case, I have to say no. Like, there's one scene in the last episode where Hilda is talking to her mom about how she was worried and scared for Johanna's safety while the two were separated, and it was the perfect opportunity to have Johanna say, "Now you know how I feel," but she just doesn't. The final interaction that Hilda and Johanna have before the season's end does suggest that Hilda has learned her lesson, but based on past events, I'm gonna need more than Hilda's word to feel confident that she's actually progressing as a character, because she has proven time and time again that her word is not reliable. Now, due to the nature of Season 2's end as a cliffhanger, I of course know that there is still plenty of room for these characters and their relationship to develop, which is why I don't want to slam Hilda too hard for this. However, at this point, the emotional connection I felt so strongly towards Hilda and Johanna's relationship in those magical first 3 episodes has largely faded away, and moreover, I have to question how much another potential 2 years of waiting for the next season will hinder my emotional investment with this narrative. Also, I'm just gonna say it was super lame how they basically just gave us a repeat of Hilda and Frida getting mad at each other for no good reason other than to increase the interpersonal drama for the finale, when they did nearly the exact same thing with Hilda and Johanna at the exact same point in Season 2. Just like Frida towards the end of Season 1, Hilda starts acting completely out of character and gets weirdly antagonistic towards Johanna, considering that they have had an extremely loving and healthy relationship for the entirety of the show up until this point, and even had that loving relationship get its time in the spotlight in the episodes directly preceding this one. So that was pretty lame. And look, I don't want to make it sound like I thought their relationship was all bad. There were more than enough moments in this season that made their relationship a joy to watch. Specifically, I was super happy to see Johanna and Hilda actually go on some adventures together. And of course, getting to see their backstory together was just adorable. As for where their current plotline and relationship is going, however, I suppose only time will tell. Moving on to a more positive note, many of the supporting characters got further fleshed out this season, and I have almost nothing but good things to say about all of them. I loved seeing Victoria Von Gale again. Her episode this season and her character arc as a whole was kind of a microcosm of what I wanted out of Eric Alberg. She wants to invade the Nissa space, a land that does not belong to her, and ultimately she is basically exiled from everything she valued because of her misguided beliefs, and seems to have a genuine moment of reflection for what she's already done. Also, the environment she ends up in is so unbelievably beautiful, it justifies anything that needs to happen in the story just to put that on screen. David had a diet dipper versus manliness episode, which was cool. Frida became a witch in training after being recognized for her ingenuity and desire to learn by Matilda Pilvist, and I really liked this development for her, if only because it gave her something to do and work towards. It's very satisfying seeing Frida gradually get better at performing spells and the like over the course of the season, and what's even better is that the show puts major emphasis on how hard she is working to learn how to use magic properly, and this makes her achievements feel very well earned. Honestly, I could go on and on naming different characters like this and what I liked about their individual stories, but we would be here for a while if I did that. Truthfully, Hilda is just a show that knows how to make its emotional beats land very well, and so on an episode-to-episode basis, it is an incredibly enjoyable experience. It's the kind of show that can fully immerse you in its charm and personality, which makes it super easy to binge, which I did. And even though I noticed a lot of areas where I felt the show could improve, I nonetheless thoroughly enjoyed my experience with Season 2 of Hilda, and I am extremely excited to see what will come of Season 3. With that said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I would love it if you stuck around on my channel for more of these types of analytical thought pieces, considering it's basically all I do. You can also follow me on Twitter at KrossXC, and if you really like me, you can pledge to my Patreon. With that said, have a wonderful day, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.